Hi, my name is Nate Baglios. I'm the Director of Marketing for Kali Audio, and this is FAQ Friday, the subwoofer edition. This edition is sponsored by the WS6.2 subwoofer, which is an excellent choice if you need a subwoofer for a stereo setup or even a small 5.1 setup. So we're going to answer some of the questions that we get about subwoofers a lot, and I'll start with a big one, which is, do I need a subwoofer? And the answer is yes. To get a little bit more involved with that answer, the question of whether or not you need a subwoofer, whether or not a subwoofer is useful for mixing, is sort of up to your own taste, but there's a little bit of context that might be helpful for this. The biggest thing is that if you're thinking about the sort of music that you're making, the sort of music that you're listening to, the sort of music that a lot of people are listening to, and the playback systems that they're listening on, I would argue, yeah, you need a subwoofer. With EDM and hip hop and pop being very bass heavy genres and having a lot of low end and a lot of stuff that's under 40 hertz, you need a subwoofer to reproduce those frequencies, and you need a subwoofer to check how those frequencies are sitting in your mix. Now, at the same time, you could just have a pair of speakers and check specifically for bass on a pair of headphones, and there's not really anything wrong with that. And if that's just a check that you do every once in a while, you're not going to get sick of working on headphones. So that is an option. But I would say in 2023, yeah, you need to know what's going on between 20 and 40 hertz in your system. To get even more involved with it, the Dolby spec for full range speakers calls out that you need a speaker that plays down to about 40 hertz, which it happens, all of our Kali Audio speakers do play down that low. But again, we can hear all the way down to 20 hertz, so there's a whole octave between 20 hertz and 40 hertz. And if you want to hear that information, yeah, you need something that reproduces that information. You should either have a pair of headphones that you can check your mix on or a subwoofer. So the second question we get a lot is, how many subwoofers do I need and how do I configure my subwoofers? This comes up for people who are doing stereo, this comes up for people who are doing Atmos, this comes up for people who are doing surround sound. There's sort of this notion of needing at least 2 subs for whatever you need. One of the nice things about a sub is you can always buy one sub, and if you need another sub, you can buy another sub. You don't need to buy all your subs all at once. You can sort of test how it's working in your room and then go from there. But when people are talking about multiple subs, especially in Atmos, sometimes people are talking about getting 7.2.4 instead of 7.1.4. And just to be a little pedantic, that's a bit of a misnomer. You're not actually running 2 channels into your subwoofer. You're running a channel called LFE, which is low frequency effects. And the point of LFE is so that when someone is mixing, they know that the channel that's getting the stuff like the explosions, the deep bass hits, the car door slamming, the gunshots, all that stuff is going into a dedicated subwoofer channel. So they don't have to worry about all that low frequency content going through the main speakers. They don't have to worry about what the main speakers are capable of. They know that that's going to translate because the subwoofer is being used for the playback. If you're using 2 speakers, you're actually still just using 1 channel to drive both of those subwoofers. And the reason for that is that subwoofers, when they're used together in a room, because bass frequencies are such large wavelengths, tend to sum together. And so even if you're using 2 subwoofers, effectively they're acting as one system working together. So it's 7.1.4, even if you have 3 subwoofers or 2 subwoofers or 4 subwoofers or however many it is, it's all subwoofers playing the same content, acting together in concert to reproduce those low frequencies. The other thing that comes up a lot is people talk about 2.1 systems, and that's not really a thing that exists. It's something that, this is me being pedantic. From a purely consumer standpoint, yes, that exists. You can get a subwoofer and 2 satellite speakers. But in terms of the content that's being produced, almost no one is producing content for 2 full range speakers and then a separate channel that is just for a subwoofer. You're getting stereo content and you're taking all the full range content, splitting off everything under 80 hertz or 100 hertz or whatever it is, sending that to the subwoofer, and everything above 80 hertz or 100 hertz, wherever your crossover point is, to the full range speaker. This is a concept that is called bass management. So basically, with a full range speaker, it is really hard for a full range speaker to reproduce everything from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, which is roughly the range of what humans are able to hear. And the hardest things to reproduce are the things in the bottom end. Every octave that is reproduced on the bottom end takes twice as much energy as the octave above it. So 20 hertz to 40 hertz takes twice as much energy to reproduce as 40 hertz to 80 hertz takes. And that's why you want a dedicated subwoofer, because you're not worried about that system having to reproduce that really high energy content as well as everything else that human beings are able to hear. The other thing that's nice about a subwoofer is because subwoofers reproduce such huge wavelengths, those wavelengths down to 50 hertz as an example is a 20-foot wavelength. That is a giant sound wave. There are different places in the room where you might want to place your subwoofer. So your full range speakers you want sort of in what we call a listening triangle, which is an equilateral triangle where you have your speakers at 60 degrees and they're equidistant between each other and you, the listener. Your subwoofers might not want to go there. They might not play well in the room there. And so by having that bottom octave or 2 or 3 octaves separated into a dedicated subwoofer, you can put that elsewhere in the room where it's going to play nicely. And because those wavelengths are so giant, they're going to be able to sum with the speakers, even if they're removed from each other in space, which is a really cool thing that bass does. So that's some frequently asked questions about subwoofers. We hope that helps. If you have other questions that we didn't address, put those in the comments below, and we'll do that in the next video. Thanks so much.